Hello, I'm Naresh Aggarwal, one of 3 members of the policy and technical team at the ACT, and I'm joined here by Mike Rigby, who's the Managing Director, Head of UK Specialist Sales at Barclays Bank. And we've just had another very, very successful ACT Cash Management Conference here in London, and it's been a very, very busy day. And what we thought would be useful is just give a quick summary of some of the things that we've heard, talked about, and listened to from some of the speakers. So, Mike, what grabbed your attention if I had to pick one thing?
If you pick out one thing out of this conference today, Naresh, it's got to be the external impacts that are affecting the Treasury teams. We've covered geopolitical risk, we've covered economic outlook and political change. These are all things outside of the Treasury team that they need to bear in mind. But add to that the pace of change we're seeing within the companies. You know, they've got a changing client profile, they've got new payment methodologies arriving in, they're very interesting liquidity management. So there's a lot going on for them to think about. But you know what, Naresh? The core principles of Treasury remain stable.
Yeah, and I sort of reflect when I speak to a lot of treasurers and listening to some of the conversations around lunchtime. As you say, there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of change, and some of it external, some of it internal, some of it you could argue we've had high interest rates for a year or so, but we're in a different economic cycle. I really enjoyed listening to the geopolitical environment both in the UK and in the US. I think somebody said over half the world's population are going through elections this year. So we're seeing a period of I hate that word, unprecedented, but it does feel quite unprecedented, despite the fact this Treasury is used to a lot of change and crisis and that sort of stuff. It just feels like a bit more this year when I speak to folks.
Yeah, and they've got a lot on their mind, haven't they? They've got to think about this. And there's not a lot of risk appetite out there within the corporates at the moment. So they need to manage all this external change, dynamic situation, but remain focused on those core Treasury principles.
And I think that one of the things that I find interesting about cash management is, if I think back to 35 years ago when I first started in Treasury, some of the things we're doing today haven't changed. The technology has changed in a big way, but the fundamental jobs for cash management for a treasurer remain the same. And I sort of think whether you work for a big company or a small company, everyone has to deal with cash management one way or another. And I think conferences like today really need to be on everyone's agenda, because there's always going to be something new, or you just want to check that nothing has changed dramatically around what you do.
Yeah, how you navigate those periods of change are important. And I think time to reflect, time to listen, learn, and also talk to your peer group, because the peer group is where you're going to go to for your sound check, your due diligence on what people are doing. It gives you a sense check beyond your company's front door about what others are thinking, using your banking partners, your technology partners to help educate you on those decisions. The advice I'd give them is to remain focused on the actual vision, the strategy of the organisation and what they're trying to achieve. And as we've heard from a couple of our speakers today, you have to remain very realistic about what the achievable is. You know, some of these are dealing with 1,300 bank accounts, 40 different countries, 40 different cash flow forecasts. So trying to be realistic about the pace of change that you can adopt. But I would say you're absolutely right. They should consult, use their expertise that they've got in-house, use their consultants, their friends, their banks, to talk about how that technology might help, and use many of the technology firms that are out there.
It's an enabler, isn't it? It's not the be-all and end-all. If I put a great, fantastic TMS in place, it's not going to magically transform what I do. And I do think sometimes people still get confused by, if I put in, invest a lot of time and money in technology, my life's going to be better. Hopefully it will. But I really like this thing you picked on around the network, because no one's doing this for the first time. And speaking to peers, speaking with people at the ACT, speaking to industry specialists, whether it's a bank or an FI, technology vendor, these are all going to be useful conversations to help you work out, are you getting the best advice? Is it an advice that the vendor is just trying to sell you because it's best for them? This power of networking, I've seen it today really in a really exciting way.
Yeah, and look at the conferences you guys host, right? They're full every single time. It's a destination which people are choosing to go to. When you look at technology and what a customer is talking about technology for, they want to talk about the whole aspect. So that can be at the very front end when the consumer in a consumer business walks in the door, and they want that optionality. Optionality online, the same optionality in store, and they want that to be, is it account to account? Is it buy now, pay later? The plethora of Apple Pay opportunities that you would have, etc. But that optionality is there, and people are used to that now. But then once the cash is in, and it can come in many different ways now, not just the traditional rails, once it's in, it's that efficiency. So technology, how can technology efficiently help them reconcile those payments? And efficiency about liquidity. We've heard a lot today about liquidity. And the way in which they can pool the cash that's available in the various companies they're covering, pool it into one place and then distribute that liquidity efficiently. I think when they consider technology, it must be from a grounded point of what strategically is the company trying to achieve, and how is this technology going to enable them? Technology can solve many of those, but remain grounded in what the strategic direction of the firm is.
And I think one of the things that I'm going to pick up on one of the things, so I feel quite passionate about it. It's that treasurers have the opportunity not to just try and make what they do more efficient and more effective, but it's actually lifting the business and adding value to the business. Is that something that you find when you have those conversations?
Yeah, you see far more interaction now between the treasury team and the front-end customer serving team, the sales department, and also other areas. The boardroom is really interesting, liquidity management, risk appetite, rate return. So I see the treasurer being a really central role within those businesses.
And I think as an ex-treasurer myself, that's the bit I really got excited. I have to be honest, I didn't get excited about notional pooling or zero balancing or virtual banking. I'm sorry to say. It was looking at the business, what are the challenges that they experience, and how did I work out how to make life easier for them? And I think the stories I really enjoy hearing is when treasurers have led or been involved in projects where they have been a sort of byproduct beneficiary. The business has got more insight around clients and customers and suppliers and all those sort of things. And the great thing about a day like today is you're not caught by how much cash do I have today and which money market fund do I put it in. It's the opportunity to step back, and it's some of what you said, to reflect on the business. What are its pain points, and what am I hearing from the presenters, from my peers, that's going to help them run a better business for us all together?
Yeah, if you walk away from today's conference having reflected, thought about your business and the impact the external environment is having on it, listen to some of those technology solutions and thought about one or two actions that you can take away, share with the board, and maybe take a strategy going forward, then today will have been a really enjoyable day.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.